Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, welcome. Please go ahead and subscribe right now because the story I am about to tell you today is one of those moments that reminds you why certain artists occupy a completely different space in people's hearts than just regular entertainers. What happened at the BTS Arirang World Tour concert in Brussels on the night of July 2, 2026, was not about the music. It was not about the choreography or the stage design or the surprise song selection or any of the other things that typically generate the biggest reactions at a BTS concert. It was about one person, in a crowd of 66,000 people, noticing something that almost no one else around him noticed and then doing exactly what his character demanded he do about it. So if you are ready, let us get into this. BTS performed at the King Baudouin Stadium in Brussels on July 1 and July 2, 2026, marking the group's first concerts ever in Belgium. Let's start there, because the context of what Brussels meant as a stop on this tour matters for understanding the emotional weight of everything that happened on those 2 nights. Belgium had never hosted a full BTS concert before. Not during the peak years of their first global wave, not during any of their previous world tour cycles. For ARMY in Belgium and across neighboring countries in Western Europe, the Netherlands, Luxembourg, France, Germany, these 2 nights at King Baudouin Stadium represented something they had genuinely been waiting for across the entire span of BTS's career. Some of the fans who attended those concerts had been ARMY for a decade or more, had watched concert footage from cities all over the world, had followed the group through every era, every album, every comeback, every moment of separation during the military service years, and Brussels was finally, after all of that, their moment. Their city. Their concert. The Arirang World Tour is BTS's 6th concert tour, spanning more than 88 dates in 34 cities across 23 countries, marking the group's return to live performances after completing their mandatory military service. The scale of this reunion tour is something that is important to keep in mind as we talk about what happened on day 2 in Brussels, because it gives you a sense of the stakes that every single night of this tour carries. This is not a routine run of shows by an established band comfortable with the mechanics of touring. This is the first full group world tour after years of separation, years of ARMY waiting, years of the members serving their country and then slowly, carefully, one by one, coming back together. Every show on this tour is historic. Every city is a chapter in a story that ARMY has been reading since BTS's comeback was first announced. Tickets to the Brussels concerts were sold out, with the King Baudouin Stadium filled to capacity for both nights. That means somewhere in the range of 50,000 to 66,000 people inside King Baudouin Stadium on the night of July 2. 50 to 66,000 human beings, all in the same space at the same time, all focused on the same stage, all experiencing the same music and the same performances with the full intensity of people who have waited years for exactly this moment. And it was in the middle of all of that, the noise, the lights, the energy, the scale of it, that something happened just before the surprise song segment of the show that stopped everything. Let me tell you what we know from the fan accounts and the video footage that circulated in the hours after the concert. The surprise song moment is always one of the most anticipated parts of every BTS Arirang tour show. It is the segment where BTS performs songs that are not on the standard setlist, songs that change from city to city and from night to night, creating a sense of exclusivity and surprise that has generated some of the most emotional fan reactions of the entire tour. ARMY going into any given show knows that 2 surprise songs are coming at some point during the night, but they do not know which songs. The anticipation builds throughout the entire performance, and when the moment comes, the reaction in the crowd is always enormous. On the night of July 2 in Brussels, as BTS was transitioning toward the surprise song portion of the show, something shifted. Fan footage from multiple positions in the stadium captured what happened next, and the clip spread across social media within hours of the concert ending. According to the footage and the fan accounts that accompanied it, a brief pause occurred just as the group was about to begin the surprise song segment. And then the reason for that pause became clear. Jimin had noticed something in the crowd. In a stadium of 66,000 people, with stage lighting illuminating the performance area and leaving much of the audience in relative shadow, with the noise level at the kind of decibels that make individual sounds blend into a single wall of crowd energy, Jimin had seen, or sensed, or somehow become aware of, a fan in the audience who was in distress. Specifically, a fan who appeared to have fainted, or to be in the process of losing consciousness, somewhere in the crowd below the stage. What happened next is documented clearly across multiple fan accounts and video clips. Jimin immediately alerted the other members. The translated fan account dialogue that circulated online captured the sequence of communication. Hold on, does it seem like someone fainted? Or feels unwell? Please handle it quickly. And the response from another member, why? What happened? And Jimin again, it seems like someone is feeling unwell. Please handle it quickly. Another voice, okay, someone will go there. And then Jimin, directing the medical team, they have already cleared a path over there. You should come from the other side at the back. That last detail, Jimin actively directing the medical team on the best route to reach the fan, telling them to approach from the back because the direct path had been cleared, tells you something significant about the quality of attention he was giving to the situation. This was not someone who noticed a commotion in the crowd and gestured vaguely toward it before moving on with the show. This was someone who had assessed the situation, understood the logistics of a 66,000-person venue floor, and was actively problem-solving in real time to make sure the person in distress received help as quickly and efficiently as possible. And this is the part that generated the most emotional response from the fans who witnessed it in person and from the millions of ARMY who watched the footage afterward, the entire group waited. All 7 members of BTS stood on that stage and did not continue the show until the medical team had reached the fan and the situation was under control. They did not make a brief announcement and then continue performing while the situation was being handled at the edges of their awareness. They stopped. They waited. They made the well-being of one person in a crowd of 66,000 the single most important thing happening in that stadium in that moment. Fan posts describing the moment were overwhelmingly emotional. One widely circulated comment translated to, "There was someone in the crowd who felt unwell, and Jimin immediately noticed. He looked so worried." Another, "Jimin has a heart of gold. He is beautiful inside and out." And perhaps the one that captured the sentiment most succinctly and most powerfully, only Jimin could see one person in a crowd of 66,000. Now, I want to spend some time thinking about what that last observation actually means, because I think it is worth more than the emotional shorthand it gets compressed into in fan posts. When people say only Jimin could see one person in a crowd of 66,000, they are not making a literal claim about visual perception. They are making a claim about attention, about where a person's awareness is directed when they are on a stage in front of a massive crowd, and about what that direction of attention reveals about who they fundamentally are. When you are performing at the level BTS performs at on the Arirang tour, your attention is necessarily occupied by an enormous number of simultaneous demands. You are tracking your own vocals and making micro-adjustments in real time based on what you are hearing in the monitors. You are monitoring your position on a 360-degree stage with 4 catwalk extensions reaching toward different sections of a stadium, making sure your movements are registering for fans in every section rather than just the ones directly in front of you. You are executing choreography that has been rehearsed to the point of muscle memory but still requires active physical attention, especially under the strain of late-stage tour dates when the body is carrying the accumulated fatigue of months of performance. You are managing the emotional energy of a crowd of 66,000 people, reading the room, adjusting your interaction and engagement based on what the audience is giving back to you. You are aware of your fellow members, where they are on stage, how they are feeling, whether any of the spontaneous moments of connection and humor that define a BTS live show are building and need to be responded to. All of that is happening simultaneously, at performance intensity, in a stadium environment where the sensory input is immense. And in the middle of all of that, in between his own performance demands, in the midst of reading the crowd, in the transition moment before a surprise song that the entire audience was electric with anticipation about, Jimin noticed one person. That is extraordinary. And it is not the first time. If you have followed the Arirang World Tour closely, you already know that this Brussels moment fits into a pattern that has defined how Jimin engages with audiences at every stop on this tour. The pattern is one of unusually granular, personal attention to individual people within massive crowds. It is the quality that makes fans in the front rows of Arirang tour shows consistently describe the experience as feeling like Jimin is performing specifically for them, making eye contact that feels genuinely individual rather than the generalized acknowledgement toward a section of the audience that most performers offer. It is the quality that generated the viral Las Vegas moment earlier in the tour, When Jimin moved toward the security line near the stage and the guard stationed there visibly fought to maintain her professional composure while clearly fighting a smile, a moment that went viral precisely because Jimin had apparently made that individual person feel seen in a crowd of thousands. But the Brussels moment takes that quality to a completely different level, because what Jimin noticed in Brussels was not a moment of joy or connection. It was a moment of need. Someone in physical distress, somewhere in a crowd of 66,000 people, in a venue environment that is by design overwhelming to the senses, and Jimin saw it. Or felt it. Or became aware of it through whatever combination of genuine attentiveness and human instinct distinguishes people who are truly present for the people around them from people who are simply physically in the same space. And then he acted on it without hesitation. He did not wait to see if someone else would notice and handle it. He did not make a mental note to check later. He did not weigh the disruption to the show's momentum against the needs of one person in the crowd and decide the show was more important. He stopped everything. He communicated the situation to the other members. He directed the staff. And the entire group, all 7 of BTS, held that pause, held that moment of stillness in a stadium of 66,000 people, until they knew the person who needed help had gotten it. Think about what that moment felt like from the inside, from the perspective of an army who was in King Baudouin Stadium on July 2nd. You have waited, potentially for years or even a decade, for this concert. You are standing in a crowd of 66,000 fellow fans, in a country that was experiencing BTS for the very first time. You are in the middle of what is already a historic, emotionally overwhelming night. And then, at the moment right before the surprise song, the moment of maximum collective anticipation, the show stops. And gradually, as clips began circulating on social media in real time during the concert itself through ARMY networks, the reason starts becoming clear. Jimin had noticed someone who needed help, and he was making sure they got it before anything else continued. The reaction that spread through the crowd in that moment, and that spread even more widely through ARMY online spaces in the hours after the concert, was a specific kind of emotion that is difficult to describe with a single word. It was not just admiration, though it was that. It was not just love, though it was certainly that. It was something closer to the feeling you get when you see someone you care about do something that confirms what you always believed about who they are, a kind of profound, grateful recognition. ARMY had always known this about Jimin. They had seen it in smaller ways, in countless moments across his career. And Brussels was simply the most unambiguous, most large-scale, most publicly witnessed expression of it that had yet existed. The fan who had fainted, or nearly fainted, in the crowd was helped by the medical team. The fan account posts that circulated after the show included prayers and well-being messages for that person, with the characteristic ARMY warmth that defines how this community treats its own members, including the ones they have never met and may never meet. ARMY stay safe and stay healthy, read one widely shared post. The care was not just for BTS, it extended to every person who had been in that stadium, to the community as a whole. Now let's talk about something broader that this moment illuminates, because I think it connects to something important about the kind of cultural phenomenon that BTS represents in 2026 and about why moments like this resonate so far beyond the fandom. We are living in an era where the relationship between performers and their audiences has been transformed by social media and by the scale of modern entertainment. Stadium tours regularly put artists in front of audiences of 50,000, 70,000, or more. The logistical reality of performing at that scale creates a natural tendency toward a certain kind of distance. The artist exists on the stage, the audience exists in the crowd, and the interaction between them is mediated by the performance itself. The artist waves to the crowd, scans the sea of faces, gestures broadly towards sections of the audience. The individual fan becomes, functionally, part of a collective audience rather than a person in their own right. BTS has consistently refused that dynamic throughout their career, and the Arirang World Tour has been a particularly vivid demonstration of that refusal. The 360-degree stage design with 4 catwalk extensions reaching toward every corner of the stadium is, in part, a physical expression of the commitment to individual connection at scale and architectural acknowledgement that every single person in the stadium deserves to feel like they are close to the performance, not just observers of something happening far away from them. The Arirang stage features a unique center stage layout with 4 catwalks extending toward the corners of the stadium, so wherever your seat is, you get a chance to see BTS up close. But the Brussels moment goes beyond stage design. It goes beyond anything that can be planned or choreographed or built into the structure of a show. It is the expression of something that either exists in a person's character or it does not, and in Jimin's case, the evidence across years of performances, fan interactions, and public moments suggests that it exists in him at an unusually deep level. The handwritten note that Jimin left for his hair extension specialist Bomi, which circulated widely among ARMY in the days before the Brussels concert, is another data point in the same pattern. In that note, Jimin thanked Bomi for her support, wished health for her and her children, and promised to return for more hairstyling. The fact that he mentioned her children specifically, that he had registered and remembered that particular detail about her personal life, and chose to include it in a thank you message, struck fans as characteristic of the same quality of attention that defined the Brussels moment. He notices. He registers. He cares about the specifics of the individual people around him, not just the general category of the people around me. This is who Jimin is. And Brussels, on the night of July 2, 2026, gave 66,000 people and then millions more watching online the clearest and most powerful demonstration of that character that has yet been captured in a single concert moment. The show continued after the medical situation was handled. The surprise song segment happened. The rest of the night unfolded with all the music and energy and connection that defines a BTS Arirang tour performance. And at the end of the night, the fans who had been in King Baudouin Stadium walked out into the Brussels night carrying two things simultaneously, the memory of an extraordinary concert, and the memory of the moment when the concert stopped for one person. The Arirang World Tour continues from Brussels to London, Munich, and Paris before moving on through the rest of the European leg and eventually to Latin America and other regions through 2027. At every stop on this tour, in every stadium in every city, there will be tens of thousands of people who are there because BTS means something to them, something personal, something that has been part of their lives for years or decades. And Jimin, night after night, city after city, treats every single one of those people as if they are individually visible to him. As if they individually matter. As if the crowd of 66,000 is not a crowd at all, but 66,000 individual people, each one deserving of real attention. Most of the time, that quality expresses itself in the warmth of a performance, in eye contact across a crowded stage, in the way he responds to individual fans who catch his attention during a show. But in Brussels, it expressed itself in the most unambiguous way possible. He stopped everything to make sure one person got help. And the entire world noticed. If you have never watched a BTS concert before, or if you are someone who has heard the name BTS but never quite understood why people are so deeply invested in this group, the Brussels moment is as good an explanation as any I could offer. It is not just about the music, though the music is extraordinary. It is not just about the performances, though the performances are some of the most technically accomplished and emotionally resonant live shows happening anywhere in the world right now. It is about the people. It is about 7 individuals who have spent over a decade building a relationship with their fans that operates on a completely different level from standard celebrity fan dynamics. And it is about moments like Brussels, quiet, human, unrehearsed moments that make that relationship real in a way that no amount of record sales or award wins ever could. Thank you so much for watching this video. If it moved you, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel for more content covering the BTS Arirang World Tour and all the moments, big and small, that are making this the most remarkable tour of their career. Drop a comment below and tell me how this moment made you feel. And to whoever it was who needed help in that stadium on July 2nd, I hope you are okay, and I hope you know that 66,000 people were thinking about you in that moment, because one person on stage made sure of it. I will see you in the next video.